Hello, and welcome back to the Secular Homeschool Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Ashley. In today's episode, we're going to explore the profound impact homeschooling has had on my inner child, influencing not only my role as a mother, but also shaping the woman I am becoming. So stay tuned for a reflective journey into the evolution of self through the lens of homeschooling. When I kicked off this, my focus was all on academics, curriculum, set schedules, socializing, more academics. And then I think I just kind of crashed and burned. And it hit me that there are so many other components that I needed to focus on as well, not just curriculum, set schedule, so on and so forth. I needed to take a moment and realize that I needed to build a space where my kids felt loved and supported and connected. So join me on this episode as we dive into the homeschooling roller coaster I'm currently on, uncovering the impact it has on us, the parents, and the awesome journey of self-reflection it brings along. So in a completely honest moment, I have to admit that the idea of homeschooling scared me. I know I meet some moms who are just so excited, they're so thrilled, they get to just dive in and they're so bold and brave and courageous. And that wasn't me. I was scared. The thought of being solely responsible for my kids' education, their character development, and preparing them for the world felt incredibly overwhelming. I thought if I did all of the research and wrote down the most perfect plan and ran it like a drill sergeant, like I was some authoritarian, that it would all work out just fine. And it quickly proved to be wrong, and it was a chaotic scene at my house. It was a lot of tension. My oldest was in tears. I was in tears. And I mean, it didn't feel good to live here, eat here, have joy here, and also have like very tense moments in homeschooling. And they all couldn't just exist in this space. Like, we had to figure out something because what I was doing was not working. And so I'm trying to figure out why it's not working. And I thought I deschooled, but I think in reality, I didn't dig deeper. I needed to dig deeper. I think I was monitoring and managing my kid deschooling without taking time to do my own inner work and letting go of what I thought school should be or school at home should be. Because deschooling isn't just for kids, it's that important for adults. And it dawned on me that the conventional system didn't work for my kid. I mean, we did try the private school, we tried a traditional public school, we tried a charter school, and none of those approaches were the right fit for her. And for some reason, I came home and tried to replicate that system, knowing it wasn't working for her. I think I was just being delusional and not really addressing those delusions when I was supposedly deschooling. And so I had to sit down, deschool a little bit more, and reassess to let go of those preconceived notions of what school is supposed to be. And I needed to truly understand what worked best for our kids, because at that time I had my oldest, and then my middle kid was a toddler. And if I was going to do this long term, I needed to figure out a new approach in case my middle one was going to be a homeschool kid. And so I had to step outside of what was familiar, right? Which added more to the anxiety of my big feelings about homeschooling, because homeschooling was already a lot of emotion for me. And then having to just stop what I had overly researched, throw that out the window, and try something completely different that didn't necessarily look like school. And you can hear the police sirens. It's raining here, and so, and I live right off the right by the freeway. So hopefully whoever got into an accident or having an emergency, they're okay. All right, so the dirty work on fixing the mess that I created. So this is where my journey of self-reflection began. And you hear people say it all the time, like take a long look at yourself in the mirror. And man, to look at those ugly or those sad parts, it is difficult because we like to exist, especially with social media, that everything's fun, everything's happy, everything's great. And so we don't always take time to nurture those not so fun parts, right? And so I had to have an open and honest conversation with myself. I had to dive into my own personal memories of school. And again, I've said it before, I hated school. It just wasn't fun. I didn't have joy. It was boring. And maybe because I went to mostly Title I schools and I didn't have as many resources, but I started skipping school in 6th grade. I would go straight out the front door, and my grandmother worked at the school and she would drive around looking for me. I just didn't want to go back into the building. And I always had friends. I always knew, I was always one of those people who knew everybody, but I didn't want to go into the class. And I could read, I could write, I was on grade level with everything. I just decided it wasn't for me. And so understanding that, then I had to go even deeper to say, why wasn't it for me? And that was hard to pinpoint the moments of joy and the moments of frustration. But I do remember having this one teacher for one semester, Miss Washington, and she was just this older Black woman who was very no nonsense. But she introduced me into the Harlem Renaissance, and I love devouring history. And she gave me the set of some Zora Neale Hurston books, and I loved it so much that I ended up entering into the state's history fair, and I ended up placing with the state. We had to drive down to the Capitol, and so that's the moment I can remember that sparked joy for me when I was learning about something new. And I think maybe because it was the first time that I was learning something a little bit about myself and my Black culture that was just so exciting, that it was different than the narrative that I had been hearing, that slavery, and that's not very fun, and I understand it's a part of our history, but what about the positive narrative that we have in our Black history? And so that was exciting for me to be able to pinpoint that. And so after I had this introspective session with myself, I needed to bring my oldest in. And I believe, she was 6 at the time. And our goals for her is to be this smart, independent, strong-minded girl who could advocate for herself. And I know these things. These are goals my husband and I have talked about for her. But why wasn't I, up until this point, giving her the opportunity to just talk on her own behalf? And so we sat down, we had this heart-to-heart meeting to understand what her preferences were for her own homeschooling environment and the ideal setup she envisioned so that we could tailor it to her needs and desires. And for 6, her insights were eye-opening. She had a very clear opinion on what she wanted and didn't want. And I knew that she was capable of it, and I don't know why I just chose to ignore it. She expressed this desire for a more fun approach. She didn't want to do traditional book work. And she didn't mind it, but she didn't want all of her lessons to be based out of a book. And she wanted some of her learning to be on the computer. She wanted flexibility to choose which subject she starts each day. So she didn't want to do reading every day for the first subject. She said sometimes she just wanted to change it up. And she wanted more elements of funny and gross. And lots of science experiments and more field trips. And so it was a revelation, and this collaborative approach not only transformed our physical homeschooling space, but also created an environment that catered to her unique learning style and interests and her voice. And it shifted a more personalized, interactive experience for all of us. And this was a game changer in making our homeschooling journey both enjoyable and effective. So recognizing the need to truly see my daughter for the bright, funny, and quirky individual she was, I used homeschooling as a golden opportunity to strengthen our connection. It was a transformative journey into connected parenting. Growing up in a single parent household, my mom worked a lot. She would pick up extra shifts. I didn't have the best relationship with my dad. He lived in another state. I understood firsthand the longing for a deeper connection with my parents. And this was a connection that I didn't have the chance to experience in the way I needed. So embracing connected parenting became my guiding principle in navigating this homeschooling adventure. The essence of connected parenting lies in fostering strong, confident, and grounded kids by establishing and nurturing an emotional bond. So drawing from this, I intentionally incorporated daily practices to deepen our connection. Some of the deliberate actions I would take, or that I do take, are quality time, setting aside dedicated moments for one-on-one time with the kid. So a lot of times it could just be something simple as like brushing their hair and having like that undivided attention in that activity. Active listening, making sure my body language is open and ready to receive, that I'm giving them eye contact, that I'm not creating any I'm making sure I'm being non-judgmental in my facial expressions or my tones, and that their thoughts and feelings are felt and understood by me. Expressing love and connection. I always try to give my kids multiple hugs a day, words of affirmation. We've even incorporated affirmations into our morning routine for homeschooling. I have a mirror in our homeschooling space, and on the top it says I am, and they pick an affirmation and they say it. And so when something gets tough, usually it's math that gets tough, they can tell themselves an affirmation like, I can do hard things. And that they have intrinsic motivation from their self-affirmations, but also by giving them love and affection and affirmations that they know that they come from a place of love, that they're supported from their father and I. And this helps reinforce a sense of security and belonging. And I encourage open communication. I think this one is the hardest, especially coming from, again, my childhood. It was definitely at times like, I'm the parent, you're the child, I'm doing what's best for you, suck it up and deal with it. And so we're raising them to be these open communicators. And we're still working on tone, right? Because that matters. But sometimes we're just trying to get things out. I don't always expect for them to have such strong opinions or feelings on things. And I have to take a moment to reflect and say, this is who I'm wanting them to be these strong, independent girls who advocate for themselves. And then we have a, open and honest conversation about why they're feeling a certain way or why I'm feeling a certain way. I want them to always be able to come and share their concerns, their dreams, their ideas without fear of judgment. And so that starts with these small conversations, right? They may not be big feelings or big moments to me, but they're definitely big to them. And I have to honor and respect that and give them that space to communicate, and also realize, I'm not parenting through the 80s and the 90s, and that I'm honoring their voice. Connected parenting has proved not to just be a philosophy, but a daily practice in creating a nurturing environment where my kids thrive emotionally and mentally and academically. This intentional approach not only enhanced our homeschooling experience, but has also laid the foundation for, I feel, raising resilient and confident individuals. A really good book about connected parenting is Parenting from the Inside Out by Daniel J. Siegel and Mary Hartzell. This book does just a fantastic job at helping you understand how your own experiences and emotions can positively influence your parenting style and enhance your connection with your kid. It breaks down the parent-child connection. The co-author, Daniel J. Siegel, is a neuroscientist, so he even discusses how the brain development is impacted by your parenting and helps you with different teaching approaches to better align with your kids' cognitive and emotional development. He discusses enhancing your emotional regulation, which is something I really needed. I didn't have a lot of patience at the beginning, and when I thought I was clearly explaining something and she wasn't getting it, I was putting all of it on her and not reflecting on me. And I would just be this big ball of frustration. I would yell at times. She would cry, and I was turning around crying. And it was just ugly through and through. And so this focus on emotional regulation has really helped create more of a harmonious and supportive homeschooling environment for my kids. Nobody is stressed out. It's not that serious. We don't get that pressed about it. Building resilience. And so building resilience is what I've come to understand with my kids specifically, is making sure that they have a very supportive environment so that they can get up and try again, and they feel encouraged to try again, and they don't have a fear of failure. And another thing this book discusses is fostering secure attachments. And secure attachments basically are the foundation of trust and emotional connection to create a positive parent-child relationship. And this book also helps you focus on mindful, intentional parenting to be more present and engaged with your kids so that you have an overall more enriching experience. And this really helps you plan out or be more intentional, right? I try to include some of these just like notes in my homeschooling notes for the week on how to make sure I am impactful with my daily interactions, that I'm giving my kids more snuggles and eye contact so that they can feel that love. And it is easy to get into this like routine where you live here, you learn here, you grow here, you eat here, and you get into a routine. But you can't. You have to be intentional with everything that you do. One of the homeschool moms says, parenting is the most intentional thing that you do ever in your life. And so it can't become this mundane thing where you're not acknowledging your kids or their presence or seeing something special in them, because then they don't feel special and it dampens I feel like their value, because we don't prioritize and make them feel special enough to see them as an individual every single day. So yeah, he also wrote The Whole Brain Child, and that book's interesting for me too, because when I've read it in the past, I've read it with one specific child in mind. So when I've gone back and read it 2 additional times, it hits me each and every time, because you have 3 kids. They have very, very different personalities with 3 very different needs. And so it is a really good book to, I think all people who are entering the parenting journey should read. But if we're specifically focusing on connected parenting, I think the Parenting Inside Out would be a great start. Me in real life, you know how much I love affirmations. And I believe in my previous episode, I let you guys know that my affirmation for 2024 is to take up space. And so that's what I'm doing with my podcast. I'm taking up space in the homeschooling world to include my secular, revolutionary point of view. But affirmations also play an important role in connected parenting because it helps support mutual growth and well-being of parent and child. These supportive and positive messages help solidify the parent-child bond and cultivate a nurturing environment within your homeschooling journey. In my weekly notes, I'll include affirmations for myself so that when things get hard or I forget about my path or things get busy, I can reconnect. So one of them that I wrote down was, I am mindful of the impact my words and actions have on my child, striving to create positive memories and a strong sense of security. Our connection, a second one is, our connection goes beyond academics. It shapes the foundation for a lifelong love of learning and a resilient, confident individual. And for my kids, I have this mirror that says I am in our homeschooling space, and they do affirmations. And when I first found out the importance, or I started diving into the importance of affirmations, I had met this woman via Instagram, and I saw she was posting about her homeschooling journey and her kids using affirmations. And so I was like, oh, that seems really cool. And so I started incorporating it. And like, whenever math is a struggle for us over here. And so I can hear, especially my middle kid last week, she's working on memorizing her multiplication facts. And she's like, I can do hard things. I can do this. I am smart. I am strong. And then got back into it. So I do think that it does help build kids' intrinsic confidence and motivation. And so some of the ones that they have on a paper they can choose from are, I am valued and I am respected and my voice matters. I trust my ability to learn and grow, and my mom and dad support me in my homeschooling journey. Another one is, I am loved, I am smart, I am kind. And so they have become more independent on, before it was like a set routine, like let's pick an affirmation, everybody, let's say it to ourselves. And now it's just been such a big part of our homeschooling journey where they're like, oh, Mom, I picked this one for the week. Or, oh, I picked this one this week. Or when I was trying to figure out how to write about, some subject, I had to remind myself that I can do this even though I didn't feel like being in the mood to write. So it is nice to see that it has grown to their own individual practice and mindset. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Secular Homeschool Revolution podcast, where we discuss the transformative power of connected parenting and the uplifting role of affirmations in our homeschooling journey. As we explored the significance of fostering a strong parent-child bond, we discovered how connected parenting goes beyond academics and shaping a learning environment rooted in empathy, understanding, and most importantly, mutual respect. Remember, our homeschooling journey is not just about lessons and textbooks. It's a shared experience of growth, connection, and continuous learning. And by incorporating affirmations, we are celebrating the individuality of our kids, encouraging open communication, and fostering a love of learning. We are building a foundation for resilient, confident, and well-rounded kids. As you continue your homeschooling adventure, take these affirmations with you and let them serve as daily reminders of the profound impact you have on your kid. Stay connected, stay positive, keep revolutionizing your secular homeschool experience. Thank you for being a part of the Secular Homeschool Revolution community. And until next time, happy homeschooling.